Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the latest installment of Power Huddle, Inside the Mind of ESG Gurus. I am Heidi Friedman, a partner and co-chair of Thompson Hine's ESG Collaborative. During this monthly series, I chat one-on-one with innovative ESG execs. These unscripted discussions will examine how these company execs from various industries are actively paving the way as ESG trendsetters and championing pragmatic ESG strategies to align with business values while building a sustainability framework to advance their company's ESG goals and practices. Joining me today is Farhana Morales. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I already admitted I'm horrible at pronouncing names, and so I've been trying here. She is an adjunct professor at the University of Colorado, Denver Business School, as well as senior manager of corporate responsibility and ESG at Target. Farhana is a seasoned ESG and sustainability professional with over 2 decades of experience, including extensive work in the oil and gas industry. She is known for her commitment to DE&I, and she works tirelessly to foster welcoming, inclusive environments in both corporate and academic settings. She teaches an innovative ESG course at the University of Colorado Denver Business School, where she guides graduate students through the development of comprehensive ESG strategies. That sounds fun, actually, to me. But anyways, her curriculum, the first of its kind, which is so fun, introduces students to core ESG concepts, politics, and metrics, equipping them with skills to navigate evolving sustainability challenges. Wow. Okay, so welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the wonderful introduction.
You bet. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about your curriculum as well. But before we begin, a few housekeeping items. Today's program is being recorded. You're going to be able to view it in our library of recordings on Thompson Hine's YouTube channel. This presentation is intended for general information of individuals and organizations on matters of current interest. The thoughts and opinions being expressed today are those of individual panel members only and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of panel members' clients, employers, affiliates, or Thompson Hine. The content should not be taken as advice, as the views expressed are for informational purposes. And Farhana is with us today with her academic hat on, not really her Target hat on. So we're going to chat about that. But if you have questions or comments, we encourage you to join the discussion by using your chat box. Please put your chat box to my name, Heidi Friedman, and feel free to make comments or ask questions, and we'll do our best to address them during our short time together. So let's get started. First of all, let's hear it. Tell us about your journey, which is really, I think, maybe one of the most diverse ESG journeys I have seen, and I think it's so fun and exciting. So do tell us.
Yeah, so my entry into the world of sustainability was very unexpected and quite refreshing. And it was actually through an individual who looked beyond my then current work experience and saw my transferable skill set. And I think a lot of sustainability professionals nowadays can resonate with that. As a leader, he saw the potential in me, and the two of us worked very closely in all facets of sustainability in an oil and gas company. I previously spent several years in the data side of the industry and was looking to transition career paths. So I'd spent over a decade in data, business intelligence. I even spent 3 years in North Africa, Algeria on a base. That was, I'll never forget that experience. So I would work a month on, month off. And I feel like when I started that journey in sustainability in that smaller company, I had the ability to be exposed to several functions of sustainability. So this was important kicking off my career and giving me the much needed experience I was looking for. The blending of having that original data background and now the sustainability one has been very complementary and valuable. Right now, a lot of companies are struggling with the data aspect of sustainability. So I'm able to bring that background and then blend it with anything ESG or sustainability related.
Wow. That is really, really diverse. And I think, just the fact that you started with oil and gas and that is obviously a targeted industry sector, that really gives you probably a really broad perspective that you can bring into all of the different positions you've had since then. So I want to hear, though, tell me a little bit about your curriculum, because I did get my ESG certificate at Berkeley. It was more law related, but I love that you're doing that at the business school, because I feel like if you're going to be a true corporate professional, ESG infiltrates really every aspect of the business right now. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your curriculum.
Yeah, so the actual opportunity to teach actually came via a networking event. So I always tell people, attend the networking events, meet people, talk with people, versus just, learning everything, get out there and discuss with these professionals. But the opportunity came when I was at a women's networking event in Denver. And I'd always had this passion of mentoring and leading individuals in any type of aspect that I was savvy in. And I love to see people grow within different facets of anything, whether it's ESG, sustainability, data. And so the goal was, when I connected with this individual that was at the University of Colorado, Denver back then, she's no longer there, was creating a comprehensive course that would allow any professional individual to really understand what is ESG, what is sustainability, and why should I understand this and how can I impact this, even if I'm not leading an ESG or sustainability role. Mm-hmm. Because this particular degree program does focus on the commodities industry, so that's oil and gas, that could be mining. While it can be specific, I've created it to be very open in the fact that anybody could actually take this course and truly understand from the foundational level what ESG and sustainability is, to the end goal of actually creating a strategy for a company, so a hypothetical company. And how would you, if you were in a meeting with the board of directors, if you were in a meeting with VPs of a corporate company, how would you suggest and recommend an ESG strategy, and what components of that are important? And at the beginning of the course, most of my students are very nervous. They have no idea how they're going to get from the beginning to the end. And I tell them, look, it's a journey, and we're all doing it in real time right now. And I believe you can do it. And what I end up with is amazing students that now leave and end up in industries, several types of industries, where they can now use this knowledge and speak intelligently about ESG and sustainability.
Yeah, I love the practical lens you're teaching that through, because I think a lot of it comes through theoretical, like where did it come from and why, and you really need to know like what the practical implementation is. And I agree with it. It doesn't matter what hat you wear. First, basically anyone in a corporation is going to touch it in some way. So that's wonderfully helpful and exciting. And you're so right on networking. In fact, you and I came together from a mutual wonderful female lawyer, Julie Walker. Shout out to her. So yeah, I couldn't emphasize that more, even though that's certainly not the topic we're talking about today. So we're really shifting, from a voluntary environment to a regulatory environment. And, obviously what's going to happen in the United States is TBD. We're kind of going back to where we used to be from the SEC. I wouldn't expect anything from them, but we do have California. We have other states chomping at the bit and very close to enacting regulation. And then we have the EU. So what's your overall view on companies sort of struggling to get their arms around this ever-changing regulatory environment?
Yeah, so again, just like you said, I believe the SEC rule will not come into play based on the change in administration. But one positive aspect of this SEC rule foundation and this coming about of it was that internal teams came together that never worked together before.
Right.
I firmly believe that ESG and sustainability work should never be done in a silo. So when those with accounting and legal backgrounds work together, the end results can be fantastic. I always tell people the three groups that I absolutely adore, my legal people, accounting people now, because we need to leverage off them for many of these aspects of regulation, and IT. Like those three groups just have to be in there. And even risk and compliance. Right now, just trying to understand what to disclose or what not to disclose from a risk perspective is very important. Sometimes you don't want to disclose some things because you might be painting the most incorrect picture. So really making sure that when you disclose certain items, it comes with a thoughtful background of knowledge, information, and education. So when that information goes out into the public sphere, it makes sense. So that's what I think. And even if the SEC rule does not come into play, there are so many publicly traded and private companies who actively, voluntarily disclose, and investor demand and proxy proposals will continue to push the needle on change in this case, as well as companies' own strategies to reduce emissions, for example, and impact change.
Yeah, I think it's going to remain stakeholder, shareholder driven, and you see some companies peeling back or rebranding, in line with that, but others are staying the course or even getting more aggressive. So, and then there's just the flow down effect that you're going to have from global companies who need to report on scope 3 for CSRD and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have that European footprint, CSRD is coming into play this year and then in 2025. So people really do have to get savvy with voluntary and now regulated disclosure, depending on where they operate. So for companies that have been progressive in their journey and have been ahead of the game, will be in a great place. The companies that have not, yes, it's going to be a big challenge for them, but I still think there's so many professionals out there that are willing to support and lend a hand, and lots of organizations that are forming think tanks where you can collaborate and share advice and how to progress. I've had wonderful connections through networking events and webinars where we're all sharing best practices. We're all in this together.
Right.
One thing I love
There's
about
no expert. It's brand new.
Yeah, I love ESG and sustainability because it's not like this hidden secret. We're all in it together. Let's all help one another to progress because the impact is global. It's not just individual. So that's what I really appreciate about that space of work.
Yeah, and for California too, we've actually, a lot of our clients are working with their trade associations so that all of the industry is working together. So, they stay sort of, in step with what others are doing. And if they're all doing the same thing, it's much more challenging, despite you have to be careful with the antitrust stuff, of course, but it really does help you, figure out how you can tackle reporting of these new topics that no one's ever addressed before. So tell me a little bit about what you think your biggest ESG success is. I think you've had many, but what would you say is your largest success?
I think becoming an adjunct professor, because I can demonstrate, if I can teach in this space, I truly understand what ESG and sustainability is. There's one thing working in it, but when you have to teach somebody else and take them on this journey, you do need that acquired level of skill set. And so it's been absolutely fantastic to integrate just this understanding of what this means for shareholders and society. I also love the reciprocal and challenging nature of teaching. I refuse to lecture my graduate students. I have the most fantastic group of students, and I've been teaching for 3 years, and we discuss ideas and opinions in a safe and professional manner. I learned so much personally from my students. I continue to challenge them to bring their authenticity and passion to each class. I can't just teach my method, my opinions. So having people of differing opinions and being able to have that safe environment where we can all discuss and be a team has been absolutely rewarding and fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. That is a very big victory in my eyes. And what do you say is either your biggest, maybe now is a great time because it's such a challenging time. What is your biggest ESG challenge right now? And, how are you tackling that?
I would say biggest challenges right now is this external environment of some negativity towards some of the programs and the information that we're trying. Some of these progressive companies are pushing through. I'll discuss D&I. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is near and dear to my heart based on the fact that I am a woman of color. I grew up in the UK. I moved to Colorado. I've lived in the US. And it makes me sad because D&I was born out of the desire to create a level playing field for all to reduce barriers for people participating in the workforce. It wasn't to give me an edge over anybody else. It was just give me the same opportunities. Let me apply for the same role and have the same type of opportunity to get into a company. Unfortunately, some of the people that have been against D&I, I feel like this has borne out of the fear. So it's not really that they hate D&I, they don't like people like me. It really is like a lack of understanding of what is this program actually doing and how is it being presented. I think some companies haven't done a great job of really integrating D&I in the best way possible. And one of the things that I always tell companies, and I always tell people and my children and my husband, the best way to combat this negativity is uncovering unconscious bias. People don't realize how powerful this is for the individual. So this is where you step out of your shoes and fully understand what it is to be like somebody else. And my husband and I were watching TV the other day, and an Apple commercial came up about the new earpods that allow hearing impaired people to now use those as hearing aids.
Oh, my husband's counting the minutes till those. Oh, we have my husband cannot wait for that.
Yeah, and so the whole stereotype of looking like you're a hearing impaired person, and the reason and I actually got emotional. And my husband's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, when I was in the UK and I went to elementary school, there was a hearing impaired unit of children in my school. It was the first of its kind. And I don't even know right now if that still exists. And what happened was I as a child and other students were exposed to hearing impaired children, and they were integrated into our school. We all learned to sign. So we all learned British Sign Language. All the songs that we sang, we signed. So I know Happy Birthday in sign language. But I think what that triggered in me in such a young age is when you include people, when you don't make them feel like they should be in their own school and they're a special case, it just grows you as an individual and really resonated with me. And I think that's why I've become such an inclusive individual to understand. Like if I'm scared of a group of people, I need to go understand what those people do and what triggers them, to then put that fear aside and truly understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, and the importance of this discussion relates back to the S of ESG and the rollback of a lot of DE&I policies. We've obviously seen a lot of rebranding to inclusion, which certainly is a, decent and reasonable approach, for risk mitigation purposes. I was joking about those, luckily my husband is not hearing impaired, but he went to too many rock concerts and does not hear well. And so we were like, oh my God, finally. So he's very excited about those. But anyways, talk to me a little bit about greenwashing claims. Those are definitely on the increase. My prediction is we're going to continue to see those increase because we're not going to have what we're looking for from the FTC, probably as well from their green guides. And I think as we've seen in the past, when there's less government regulation, there tends to be more litigation around these topics. So what advice do you have to avoid greenwashing, and any thoughts just generally about those kinds of claims?
So I actually there's a whole week in my course where we go over greenwashing and green hushing. So
yes, green hushing.
Greenwashing is making the claims. And
explain what green hushing is, just in case people don't understand.
So green hushing is like you're scared to discuss a particular concept because you're worried to put that out there in the public sphere. So you're going to hold that back. And so you're hushing it. You're holding it close to your maybe internal company conversations versus making it public. And greenwash, so that it's the understating, and then greenwashing is the overstating. So if you're not really there at a particular target, or you're claiming that you're net zero, or you've met your goals, or you're doing XYZ, that's greenwashing. And there's very important ways to avoid this. So showing progress over time. If you're putting aspirational or admirable goals out there, don't say, oh, well, in 2027 or 2030, we're going to make this, and just expect people to just wait until the year comes around to then see that you've made it or not made it. So what you need to do is annually, either via your websites or through your annual sustainability reports, you can actually show each year, hey, we put this metric or percentage out there that we're aiming to get to, and this is where we're at, and talk about the challenges. People don't expect perfection. People know all of this work is very challenging. It requires resources. It requires so much investment of time, money, people. And so if you are struggling to meet a goal or you think you won't meet it, be transparent. And I'm not saying being transparent is going to negate negative press. People will jump on negative press very easily. So even if you restate your goals, realign your goals, you're going to have some stakeholders that are not happy with you. But at that time, you're being honest, you're being truthful, you're being transparent. And to me, that communicating proactively goes a long way versus hiding and saying, we're there and you're not there.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. I mean, the transparency is always important. When we review all of the sustainability reports or websites or external facing documents, I mean, I'm constantly saying, you're saying X. Do you have the data for this? Do you know who's keeping it? All of that. And just making sure what you're disclosing is as of a certain date, because things change. There's acquisitions, there's dispositions, and that really does require a holistic approach from everybody involved in order to make it successful. So I agree for sure with everything you're saying. And I would say the other main struggle we hear a lot about and get a lot of inquiries about, other than greenwashing risk mitigation, is anti-ESG. And we talked a little bit about sort of anti-DE&I, but it's broader than that. I mean, there's a lot of states with anti-ESG policies, most of them related to pension investment and things like that. So most of them, unless you're a government entity, aren't necessarily directly impacting someone, but that might change very well, might change as well. What, do you see that as noise, or how do you view all that anti-ESG sentiment?
I'm not surprised at all by anti-ESG legislation. We've mentioned I worked in the oil and gas industry, and as an individual who is an environmentalist who really truly cares about the environment, there are ways to work in different sectors holistically and still having those values inside of you. So I was not surprised. And I believe this is born out of not having everybody on the same page of understanding surrounding the collective effort needed. So some people balk at the idea of prioritizing of social environmental goals over shareholder value. That's one subset.
Right.
But there are companies in this space that are wholeheartedly attempting to address stakeholder demands and reducing environmental impact. When I worked in the oil and gas industry for 16 years, there wasn't one oil and gas company that I worked for that wasn't concerned about the environment, that didn't have this interest at best heart. I feel like I was very blessed because I feel like I worked for some of the best. And I knew that they genuinely wanted to reduce impact. And so innovate. So one of the things that I think that is going to push back against that is innovation, and it's happening in the form of emissions mitigation, carbon capture as two examples. Regardless of this movement, companies who continue to focus on their stakeholders and material risk will achieve success as they're prioritizing what matters with a long-term view. This is not a short-term view of tomorrow. It's a long-term view that's going to impact us all.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. I agree with that. We have a question. So what advice, and I like it, it's a good one. What advice would you give to a person new to ESG, especially if that person who's interested is a student of yours?
Yeah, so if you're interested in ESG, you can sign up for a course. Just to let you know, in 2025, we'll actually be having some certificates that I'm putting together that will be for any type of professional, and you don't have to sign up for a graduate program. So there's some wonderful ESG and sustainability courses out there. So definitely do that. There is so much learning on social media right now too. So there's YouTube videos, there's also networking events, and you don't always have to be part of a corporation to attend these. And one thing I found is my expansion of knowledge through these type of networking events has been amazing. So some of these could be large events that are held by organizations, or smaller events within local cities and towns. So definitely do that. And then LinkedIn has been amazing for me. I've connected with so many ESG professionals and sustainability professionals from the foundational level to the expert level. I mean, recently I was conversing with the now soon to be retired CSO of Starbucks that I met at Green Bay. Like, who thought? I never thought I'd be conversing with the CSO of Starbucks, and he was one of the kindest, most lovely people. And when he came into our room at Green Bay, he said, I see you all as future CSOs. So connect yourself with these positive role models that you can learn from. You don't necessarily have to work with them directly, but just stay in touch with them so you can learn best practices. Most of them will give you some time to discuss, opportunities. So yeah, there's lots of platforms right now available.
Yeah, I agree. There's, I love to hear that you're going to do some certificates because I'm guessing yours will be a lot more practical, which I think is going to be very helpful to folks. And then, there is a ton of content on LinkedIn, but there's also like great content, just Bloomberg articles and Law 360 and everything. I mean, I make a joke that I probably could review ESG material all day.
Yes.
I mean, it's an interesting thing. And, there's so much new stuff that you should be kind of, just, it should make you feel good that you're not the only one trying to learn this, that we're all trying to learn this. And, some of us are, have had a little bit more experience in it over the last couple of years. And frankly, some of it's just stuff we've been doing forever. I mean, I've been doing environmental sustainability for 30 years. So you also have to keep in mind that it's not all new news. And I think you said that, which I think is really important too. So,
and I will say that I've had to change my curriculum every year based on the movements in ESG and sustainability. So it's not like a math course or a science course where nothing changes. Every year, my curriculum has changed and adjusted based on what's going on in the space of sustainability and ESG.
Sometimes I think it's every month, but on that note, that leads me into my next question, which actually coincides with something else in the chat. I was going to ask you what your prediction is for ESG for 2025, but there's also a question on where do you think it's going in the next 10 years? So I guess what's your prediction, both short and long term?
Yeah, so I think proactive companies will continue to move the needle on progress. And the initiation of CSRD in Europe, we're going to see many of those that don't have a European footprint and those who have not voluntarily actively reported possibly lag if they're not proactive now in disclosures. So investors will pay attention to this and put pressure on companies to focus on areas where they see others excelling. So an investor is not going to say, well, you have a CSRD footprint and you don't. They're just going to say, well, I see company X doing great and I see a company Y not sharing the same level of detail. And that the pressure is going to come from investors. I also think that in 2025, it's expected to be an important year for ESG with increased regulatory scrutiny, technological advancements, so that's software, that's ability to calculate some of the really difficult metrics and calculations, such as
for scope 3 and stuff
exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
And then greater stakeholder expectations driving significant changes. So not just investors, it could be NGOs, it could be think tanks, it could be anybody, it could be consumers. I think consumers are becoming very savvy about ESG and sustainability also. And I know my children's generation are making thoughtful decisions of where they spend their money. And it's based on, this type of environment.
Yeah, maybe AI can solve the scope 3 problem for us.
I love AI. I'm a big fan. I use it to
calculate that. So let me ask you a personal question. So you obviously wear many hats right now, but what do you do for fun when you're not doing your day job at Target or teaching as an adjunct?
Yeah, so I work hard and I play hard. Many people are always shocked about the number of activities I'm involved in, but that's how I'm wired. I love being involved. So I also love giving back to my community. I sit on 2 different nonprofit boards. One is Habitat for Humanity Metro Denver, and another is a Miners Alley Performing Arts Center. And that's where I met Julie, because she's the board chair. And since it is the season of giving, I have to just do shout out. I encourage all our listeners to give back in the best way you can. If you can't give back money wise, there's wonderful opportunities where you can volunteer. Also, living in Colorado opens up many possibilities for outdoor activities. I'm currently getting ready for ski season at Eldora. So I bought the Icon Pass this year since I'm off season from triathlon training. So yeah, I'll be skiing on those hills nice and slowly. I'm not a crazy skier.
Be careful. I love Denver. My son is at SNU, the University of Denver. So that's such a fun city. So I could not be more grateful for your time today. Farhana, you're really on top of all things ESG, but you're really making it tangible for, those that are entering the business world. And I think it's exciting. So thank you for sharing with us. That concludes today's discussion. Again, this webinar was recorded and will be available to view in our library of recordings on Thompson Hine's YouTube channel. We encourage you to visit our YouTube page and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content. We want to thank you again for attending today's program. And again, a special thanks to our wonderful guest guru for sharing her story and her wisdom today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi.
See you soon. Bye-bye.